Welcome back to Northern Perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox.
Holy crap, what a last 24 hours.
Yes.
January is supposed to be the down period, the boring period in politics where content creators like ourselves are trying to scrape the bottom of the barrel for content. But we weren't prepared for this week, and evidently neither was Justin Trudeau.
No, he certainly wasn't.
So, we it's funny, we posted our video last night, and we then found, this other story about Ken McDonald and the fact that he looked to be turning on Justin Trudeau and saying that there needs to be a leadership review. So we recorded that video at about, I think, quarter after midnight. And then we edited it and had it set to drop the next morning at around 11 o'clock. And it did. But at almost the exact same time, I was looking around at the CBC website and I saw that he was walking it back. So I took a quick look and I said, crap. So because we like to be accurate, we immediately took that video down because it didn't take that into account. And then at around noon, Fox and I took a look at some of the new takes on this and what happened afterwards. And that's how we ended up with the new version of the video that we put up a little later in the day. So apologies to any of you that were watching the original video and then it all of a sudden disappeared, but that's what happened. So yeah, it's been an interesting day. And for those that don't know, David Lametti resigned, but I'm sure all of you know. And he took an quite a aggressive timeline to his resignation. So he announced it today, and it takes effect in 7 days.
Yeah, February 1st. So as of February 1st, he is not going to be a Liberal anymore.
Right. So isn't that interesting? After he completely nukes his Twitter account yesterday. And so if that wasn't bad enough, you also had the UK break off free trade agreement negotiations with Canada.
Yeah, that's like your mom or dad, like, kind of kicking you out almost.
Kinda. They couldn't come to an agreement on some goods, and yeah, there's just some squabbling going back and forth. So that's not a good look for Justin Trudeau. He had the Emergency Act ruling a couple days ago. And then after the Tucker Carlson show last night, which we still haven't had a chance to see because of all this other crap that has gone on, the Liberals came out and they started throwing, personal attacks at Pierre and the MPs, and even the ones that he threw at Pierre, like they couldn't even remember what their own party was advertising on their advertising ads because Stephen Gibault came out and they said to the reporter said to him, aren't you guys increasing the divide between Canadians when you're comparing Pierre to Trump? And then Gibault says, we're not comparing Pierre Poilievre to Donald Trump. And then another reporter says, have you not been looking at your own advertising ads? That's exactly what you're doing.
And I just love it when the reporters team up to hold these Liberals to account.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. And this is reaching a point of critical mass, folks, the amount of stuff that's going on. And then you have ArriveCan heating up. You have that petition, which, it's not really a scandal, but it's something they're going to be holding over their head. And you have the McDonald's situation where he says there needs to be a leadership review. And then less than 24 hours later, he comes out and says, I didn't say there was going to be a leadership review. And Justin Trudeau, he's a great campaigner, and he's going to be the best guy for our party going forward. It's obvious he didn't write that statement. And it's obvious that someone picked up the phone and said, Ken, what the hell are you doing? Shut up. You're going to put out this statement tomorrow and you're going to sit down and be quiet. So it has just been a crazy 24 hours and a very crazy January. But first I want to acknowledge a couple things. Right at the beginning of the stream, although they've disappeared from me, I did see that Humble Tracker dropped two 10 gifted membership donations for a total of 20.
And Don Wickenden also gifted 5 Northern Perspective memberships. So if you received a membership, please thank Don and Humble Tracker.
So thank you very, very much for those. It's great to see you guys on the stream. And Trish Pro with a $5 super chat. Hit that like button, everyone. Yes, please. So then, we have the Auditor General's office attending committee today. And I do know that although that they attended committee, I do know that it was adjourned somewhat early, but there is still some testimony to review. So we're going to take a look at that. And then we're going to take a look at Garnet and Brock post meeting. And Garnet actually said his last name for us. It is Genis.
Ah, okay.
So it's not Genuous. It is Genis. So for anyone who had Garnet Genis as your proper pronunciation, you get a Northern Perspective cookie. Jerry Savoy with a $2 super chat. Anyone see the show from Carson?
No. You mean Tucker Carlson?
Carlson, probably.
Yeah. No. We unfortunately haven't been able to watch. But it's on our list.
There's lots of things that we want to watch. We still have to watch the interview with Jordan Peterson and Brian Lilly. But
well, it's funny you say that because Troy in the comments had asked, when do we find the time to do like normal people mundane stuff?
The answer is we don't.
Well, the answer is I'm a stay-at-home mom, so usually while our son's at school, I can do groceries and take the dogs to the vet and whatever needs doing. But nighttime is Northern Perspective time. So.
Alice Avonlea with a $5 super chat. Nice to see Alice. Is JT dropping out from Monarchy as revenge now? That's a good question. Only he knows the answer. And Bob Herkimer with 10 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much, Bob. Very, very much. Give Bob some love. I think it's the first time I've seen Bob actually post something.
And because tonight is a committee night, we will not be able to answer regular questions from the chat, but we will be addressing super chats.
So Barnaby is your resident hall monitor and drink server and airline stewardess. If you want to imagine him in a dress, that's up to you. But he is here nonetheless to make sure that everyone's behaving themselves. So anyhow, so let's get into this. Because this day is crazy enough and we haven't seen any of this. I imagine it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
I'd like to make a few comments for the benefit of the witness as well as members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. Lorsque vous ne parlez pas,
when you're not speaking, whether you're in the room or on Zoom, your mic should be off or muted.
Although the room is equipped with a reliable audio system, feedback events can occur. These can be extremely harmful to interpreters and cause serious injuries. In order to prevent incidents and safeguard the hearing health of the interpreters, I invite participants to ensure that they speak into the microphone into which their headset is plugged in, and to avoid manipulating the earbuds by placing them on the table away from the microphone when they are not in use. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Before we dig into the matter at hand, I also want to introduce you and welcome our new clerk, Hillary Smith. We had a meeting yesterday just to get committee work underway and prepared for the winter session. I'll give you a quick overview, and notices will be going out today and tomorrow with respect to committee work next week. Conformément à l'article 108.2 du règlement,
Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is resuming its study on the ArriveCan application.
Office of the Auditor General, Mr. Andrew Hayes, the Deputy Auditor General. Mr. Hayes, you have a brief opening remark, and we all look forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Do you have a point of order, Ms. Khalid?
No, I was wondering, Mr. Johns' hand is up online.
All right. Mr. Johns, you have a point of order.
Yes, I do. Mr. Chair, I see this meeting has been called and deemed as an emergency meeting. And my understanding is that not only is your committee studying the ArriveCan, but also 3 other committees, including Government Operations Committee, is studying ArriveCan. We had 2 emergency meetings last week. Today, an emergency meeting is being called at the same time that 3 political parties are having their strategic caucus sessions right now. We're calling on this committee has asked for the Auditor General to appear to discuss the report on ArriveCan, and this is ahead of the scheduled report being tabled to Parliament in mid-February, is my understanding. And for a couple of reasons, I don't think this is the right way to go. I think it's interrupting an investigation that's taking place right now by the Auditor General, something that actually the NDP called for. And I put forward a motion at our committee that the Auditor General, not just study ArriveCan, but all government purchasing policies and practices, and seeing if they're being adhered to in terms of the Treasury Board policies that we have to adhere to in Parliament and government needs to apply. But this calling on the Deputy Auditor General ahead of what will be a tabled report, I believe, is interference in a study that's being applied, in an investigation that's happening right now. As well, I believe that an emergency meeting needs to be called when it's an emergency. I think that we all want to get to the bottom of the ArriveCan scandal, but to have 4 committees studying it and demanding emergency meetings repeatedly. I want to talk about what an emergency looks like. I'm in Edmonton right now, where there's homeless people all over the streets, and I tabled a motion at a Government Operations Committee to look at government lands and how we would use those lands, Mr. Chair, to ensure that we have adequate housing for people. And we know that the Conservatives have talked about.
Johns, your party has had, almost 3 years now to deal with housing, to use your quote-unquote power that Jagmeet keeps talking about that the NDP has to force this government to do what they want to do. You've had 3 years to address housing.
Not only that, but Johns doesn't know what an emergency looks like. Johns voted for the motion to enact the Emergencies Act,
Bingo.
to proclaim it an emergency, which it was not.
Bingo.
So this guy has no idea what he is talking about.
Yeah, I would say point of order. The federal government just invalidated that Johns even knows what an emergency is. Can we get back to the testimony at hand? That's what I would say if I was a Conservative.
And before we continue, we have a $13.99 super chat from Sean Scotty. It says, "Thank you guys for a great channel and the breakdowns. A great community here also." Thank you very much. We are very proud of our community. We are very happy that everybody gets along well, and it seems to be a pretty awesome place.
Yeah, it's it really is. Our chats are always very cordial. Everyone's really friendly. They love sharing information. For anybody new here, you are more than welcome, even if you're a Liberal or an NDPer, because it's obvious you've come to get some more information, and that's all you're going to get, and maybe some opinions based on some of the conduct of some of the members, but you will get a lot of facts here.
Using 15% of government buildings and lands to build a housing for Canadians. We know the government has talked about using government lands as well.
This is the filibuster.
But my study was in particularly narrow focused on ensuring government lands are used for public purposes, for affordable housing, and ensure that government lands belong in public hands. That's an emergency. That's a reason to have 4 committees studying an issue when we've got homeless people skyrocketing out of control. I just want to make sure that, Mr. Chair, that when we call an emergency meeting, that it needs to be done in a way that reflects an emergency. We've brought in all the staff in the House of Commons right now to do this meeting,
except you, because
ahead of what the Auditor General is already going to be tabling. And I think that this is interference in a study that's taking place, and I don't believe that this meeting should be taking place for that reason. And secondly, I don't believe this is truly I don't believe this justifies an emergency meeting in Parliament.
Thank you.
I wanted to put that on record.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. John. So your point of order is that you object to the meeting being called, which is not technically a point of order, but I wanted to give you time to speak. I will address your first point. In fact, this committee previously invited the Office of the Auditor General to appear on this exact subject.
Oh, please talk about it. Please talk about it. Oh, I hope he does. I'm pretty sure what the chair is going to say is, this committee previously brought in the Auditor General. We only got to question the Auditor General for about 30 minutes before the NDP and the Liberals motioned to adjourn and shut it down. So you wouldn't even let this committee talk about it during a regular non-emergency meeting. So you can take your point of order on this not being an emergency and shove it. That's what I hope he'll say. I don't think
he'll say the "and shove it" part. But I've been surprised before. Let's see.
You never know.
While that investigation was underway, it was viewed as a routine meeting. That again was during a recess week. So there is certainly precedent. And in terms of interference, well, we have a witness here today from the Office of the Auditor General who is prepared to speak. So I don't quite follow the logic of this being interference. And I'll note that that previous meeting we had on October the 12th not only resulted in information being shared publicly, which was noteworthy, it also resulted in the auditor then taking steps to ensure the committee's concerns were addressed in the current report. So I've heard your point of order, which again I listened to more to allow you to get on the record, but the meeting is going to proceed.
Meeting's going to proceed, as well as someone's gestation. Congratulations to TZR Dank with a $2 super jet. Congratulate me. Just found out going to be a father. Well, don't congratulate
yay,
me.
That's so exciting.
Don't
Congratulations. That's
Congratulate Mr.
awesome.
Dank.
That is amazing. Congrats.
So enjoy. Now the stream will live in posterity. When your child is 12, you can bring them back to the stream and say, see, on this Northern Perspective live stream, the world found out that you're going to be a father.
And you know what? It's so cliche, but it's so true. They grow up so fast.
Well, so this, we're not in debate, point of orders. If you have a point of order, say point of order. Otherwise, I do want to hear from Mr. Hayes. No other points of order?
A point of clarification then, Mr. Chair. This meeting could have been called earlier in the week. I find it suspicious that the Conservatives decide to move a meeting, to have a meeting on a Friday when 3 other political parties
It's not Friday, it's
are in the
Thursday.
middle of their strategic planning session.
He doesn't even know what day is the week.
Mr. Johns, Mr. Johns, it's Thursday. There's all kinds of overlapping caucus meetings.
Amazing.
I can't believe he did that.
That was beautiful. You know, I love having a Conservative chair. Amazing.
Mr. Jones, it's actually Thursday, you knob. You know, it's so unfortunate because in some of the other ArriveCan meetings, Gord Johns has asked some really good questions. He was worming his way into my little heart, and then he's destroyed it all with his blathering on at the end of the last meeting with his failed attempt at a filibuster and the beginning to this meeting. He's like, what, you want to go and hang out with your NDP people and like they're like dozens of supporters nationwide? That's who you want to hang out with? Kaylee Valley with 5 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very much, Kaylee. And if you get any one of those from Kaylee, please make sure you give them some love. Thank you very much. But yeah, this is funny. And like, really, what is a caucus meeting for the NDP? There's 20, what?
There's
21
25 of them.
25.
Yeah.
25
You
people.
could fit them all in an elevator.
Yeah, you well, 1.5. Maybe a freight elevator, you can fit them all in there. But like, really, come on.
The letter I received that was sent to the OAG from Mr. McCauley was just end of last week, and so I worked through that as quickly as I could. So anyway, your objection is noted. Mr. Hayes, I'm hearing no other points of order. You have the floor, please, for up to 5 minutes.
Monsieur le Président, merci.
Mr. Chair, thank you for inviting me to appear before the committee to answer members' questions about our upcoming report on ArriveCan. I would like to acknowledge that this hearing is taking place on the traditional, unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. As the committee is aware, the report will be tabled on February 12th.
Looking at whether the Canada Border Services Agency, Public Health Agency of Canada, and Public Services and Procurement Canada managed all aspects of ArriveCan, including procurement and expected deliverables, with due regard for economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. I am happy to answer the committee's questions where possible. However, as you know, since this report has not yet been tabled in Parliament, I am not in a position to discuss our findings. We look forward to appearing again before the committee when the report is tabled. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. Thank you.
Point of order, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I have a point of order from Mr. Genuous, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just it was mentioned that the report will be tabled on February 12th. I'm not a regular member of this committee. I wonder if you could just provide us and anyone listening with an update on kind of what's going to happen on February 12th in terms of the tabling of the report, opportunities for members to see the report, embargoed version. Because I think I have been involved in the ArriveCan discussions at other committees, and I think there is a great deal of anticipation for that February 12th report.
Sure, I'll address that now. You're preempting my conclusion. So in mid-January, the Office of the Auditor General sent a letter to the Speaker of the House of Commons indicating the Auditor General will be tabling the ArriveCan audit on Monday, February 12th. This then triggers a series of activities both for this committee as well as the OAG. That's a Monday, and the House opens at 11. And our committee does not normally meet on Monday, but we will be that day. So how the day is going to unroll, and members will receive a notice of this before the weekend, and all parliamentarians are actually going to receive this information because the lockup is open to all parliamentarians. From 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., the Office of the Auditor General will be hosting a lockup on Parliament Hill for members to come. There'll be staff members there from the OAG who will be in a position to answer questions surrounding the audit during those 2 hours.
So before I get to what I was going to say, thank you very much, Humble Tracker, with another gifted 20 Northern Perspective memberships. Very, very much appreciated. And let's get those likes up, everybody. We're at 961 viewers and 521 likes. So if you're sitting here saying, when are we going to get to the questions, everybody? This is a bit of theater that's going on right now for the Conservatives. Garnett could have gone to Mr. Williamson at any point before this and said, hey, what's the deal on the Auditor General report? You know, what happens with that? The reason why he's asking it now and the reason why Williamson is addressing it now is why?
So that the public knows.
So that the public knows. This is a bit of theater to inform the public as to what is going on, when it's being released, and setting expectations, and, you know, just adding a little bit more anxiety for those Liberals that are sitting in committee and are sitting in their own caucus today. So it's just one more deadline that the Liberals will need to stress about in terms of what the heck are they going to find and have they found in this Auditor General report. So that's what's going on here. It's a bit of theater until we get to the actual questions.
And that is open to all parliamentarians as well as staff. Documents are also available electronically under certain embargoed conditions. Next, and this is customary, at approximately 10 o'clock, the Auditor General, Karen Hogan, will come to a committee room and take questions from parliamentarians. This is not an official committee setting. This is something that I'm, as chair of public accounts, am asked to host. There is no speaking order. It is questions to the auditor from parliamentarians, and Ms. Hogan will endeavour to respond to their questions with respect to what's been contained in the audit. And then following that, our committee will meet at approximately 11:15 in the morning. Ms. Hogan will begin with opening comments on her audit, and then there'll be a meeting for approximately 1 hour. And after that, Ms. Hogan has to leave, and she will then address the National Press Gallery with her report on ArriveCan. So that is how the day is going to unfold on February 12th. And to give you all an advance preview, I'm making arrangements now for the regular meeting on February 13th, working in conjunction with the OAG to bring the auditor, the deputy auditor, back, along with the 3 departments that are being investigated in this audit. So there's where we are.
The invitation to all parliamentarians was sent
yesterday. Pardon me. The invitation to all parliamentarians was sent yesterday. So it is either probably at your main account, and committee members might have it on their P9. So I see hands up, but I expect if you have a point of order, I would prefer if you say so.
Of order?
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the Government Operations Committee has spent tens of millions of dollars in reproduction of documents that would take 4 people full-time to go over for a year, just to take a look at documents that are costing and actually the McKinsey study, the witch hunt, found nothing.
Mr. John, I'm
nothing except for. Okay.
Can I just want you to just identify your point of order? You will have a speaking round.
The point of order is this: is that there was an opportunity to send a memo out instead of doing this whole meeting. This whole charade has cost a pile of money. It's unnecessary. The witness can't speak. We all knew this going into this meeting.
You were serious? Like you're worried about spending money? The NDP is worried about spending money, everybody.
Well, and the thing is, it's what they call brown dollars, because like these MPs are not getting extra money for being there. It's their salary. It's just cutting into their time. That's all it is.
They would have been paid not being here.
Yeah.
That's what's called
So whether they were
salary.
sitting at home on their asses, or whether they were sitting in caucus meetings, or whether they're sitting here in committee, they're not getting any extra money.
Yeah. So that's exactly right, Fox. It's brown dollars. Quinn Holmes with 5 Northern Perspective gifted memberships. Thank you very much. Very much. And I see everybody's already thanking Quinn, so that's great. But yeah, this week really is crazy. So you have one MP that resigns. The federal court essentially says that what the government did regarding the Emergencies Act was unjustified, unreasonable, and some people are saying unconstitutional. You have a flip-flop of Ken McDonald again. And you have the NDP worried about spending money. Hell hath frozen over.
Well, and the ridiculous part is, John's is sitting here complaining about having to sit there. You're already there. Just shut up and do the committee, and then go back to your caucus meeting. Like, you're already there. This would have been effective yesterday.
And plus, what are you missing, John? You're missing Jagmeet Singh speaking. Not exactly Winston Churchill.
Well, and that's why it makes me think that this is nothing more than a filibuster. Why he's complaining is just to waste time and just to try to get out of committee instead of, for anything concrete.
And the funny thing is committee would be over a lot faster if you stopped interrupting.
Because they have a report coming out. So I'm trying to figure out what games is going on here and why we're sitting here. I need an explanation, and I'm hoping you, Mr. Chair, can explain why you've called this meeting, knowing full well that the witness can't speak and there's a report forthcoming. Maybe you can explain to this committee why we're here.
Mr. Johns, the witness, is here to answer his questions to the best of his ability, and I'd like to hear from him. All right, Mr. Johns, thank you. Madame Secrétaire, avez-vous une point d'ordre?
So that was Williamson basically saying, "All right, John, shut up."
Man, I wish they could actually say stuff like that in committee.
And did you hear Johns? He was wanting the background. He can't. That's what that was.
I think Don Wickenden explains it best with a $5 super chat. Says, "Wow, all I got." Yeah, that's kind of what we're sitting here thinking.
Yeah. All right.
Ms. Sinclair-Danier, do you have a point of order? Sorry, I just had a question about what you just said with regard to the February 12th schedule. It's a quick question. What's the question? Will the meeting at 11:15 with the OAG be public? Yes. Thank you very much. Very well. Thank you.
Brock, you have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Let's see how long it lasts.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm putting notice to this committee that the last 90 seconds, I'll be yielding that time to my colleague, Mr. Genuis.
Do you want me to interrupt you on that?
If you could, please. Okay. Yeah. Good morning, Mr. Hayes. Thank you for your attendance. The Auditor General on October the 12th, 23, on a recess week, appeared before this committee, and unfortunately her testimony was cut short when the Liberal NDP coalition brought a motion to adjourn the meeting after it was revealed
Don't give them ideas.
that the government nor the CBSA informed her that the RCMP were investigating allegations of misconduct with the CBSA. She, in fact, only learned about it after reading a news article in the Globe and Mail. With that in mind, has the Prime Minister and his government been open and transparent by releasing all documentation as requested by your department?
We make our requests for information directly to the departments and agencies involved in our audits, and we have received the responses that we expected from those agencies and departments. We have not identified concerns regarding our access to information in this case.
I understand with respect to the CBSA, there is approximately 30,000 pages that have yet to be delivered to committees. It's in the translation process. Were you aware of that, and has that been factored into your report?
Our audit is relating specifically to ArriveCan. My understanding is that the study by other committees might be broader than just ArriveCan. In terms of I'm aware that the committees have requested information and that some of that is outstanding, but it's not for me to comment on the process for that.
Your office has a mandate that when you uncover some element of criminality, you are to refer that to the RCMP. Is that correct?
When we identify issues that could raise the potential of criminality, we do identify for the RCMP.
And did you uncover any issues with respect to criminality involving the ArriveCan?
So at this point, I think that would be a question that the Auditor General would be best positioned to answer on February 12th.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
We don't know. The answer could be no, but I doubt it.
Yeah. That's a cliffhanger. That's what that is.
Yeah.
You can read into that that must mean there's criminality, but I have a feeling even if there wasn't, he would probably have the same answer. Just because he's probably bound by the Auditor General's office not to talk about what is in the report that is to be tabled. So that's my guess there. Don't be judging Mr. Hayes too harshly here. He can only say so much.
And thank you to Mr. Excuses with a $2 super chat. Says the hero Brock has arrived. He sure has.
Mr. Excuses. Trudeau, you're in chat? I didn't know Trudeau watched Northern Perspective.
I guess he does.
Oh, there you go. Anyway, let's continue.
I can tell you that, as you mentioned earlier, we became aware that the RCMP has been already informed of a matter by the Canada Border Services Agency. That obviously is a different scenario than the normal one for us, where we conduct an audit and decide at the end whether or not to bring the MP in. They're already aware of the allegations.
At the Government Operation Committee level, we have seen unprecedented levels of misinformation being shared by government officials.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Why aren't we bringing in information from another committee?
It's
This
not a
is the,
point
this
of
is the
order.
Public Accounts Committee. Can we deal with the Public Accounts mandate
Ms. Shannon,
relevance?
that's hardly a point of order. Mr. Brock has the floor and is welcome to reference any information. In fact, the
reference
letter
Santa
that
Claus if he
Mr.
wants.
Cawley, who's a member of this committee, sent to the OAG specifically references OAG or information from that committee. So I will allow Mr. Brock to continue with his
While
line
my
of
Liberal
questioning.
colleagues don't want to shed any sunlight with respect to these allegations, the Conservative Party certainly does.
Yes, they do. Just saw Canadian Spider-Man's comment. If Trudeau was smart, he'd watch Cypher. Yeah, he would definitely watch Northern Perspective. So pretty much he's not watching Northern Perspective because he's not smart. Dana Wick with a $5 super chat. I'm looking forward to the non-confidence petition to be released in Parliament and how Trudeau and his minions call us stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because a lot of Canadians signed that petition, almost 1%.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, there are so many political firearms that are going to be brought to bear on the Liberals. It's going to be crazy once we get back into the House. Anyway, let's continue, Mr. Brock.
CBSA officials appeared at government operations, deliberately misled the committee. The biggest outstanding issue is who was responsible for and who chose GC Strategies, this two-person consulting company who performed no IT work, who received $11 million of taxpayer money towards the ArriveCan total expenditure, clearly receiving the taxpayer-funded lottery in the process for doing absolutely nothing. This is a hot potato. It's kryptonite to the government. It's kryptonite to government agencies. Were you able to determine, sir, with the documentation that you received, who was responsible, what department was responsible for choosing GC Strategies?
Mr. Excuses with a $2 super chat. I thought I was Trudeau. I'm watching. Well, then you need to resign.
Again, the Auditor General will be best positioned to describe the findings of our audit on February 12th. The scope of the audit is about the ArriveCan app, though.
Yeah, thank you. Has the government or the CBSA informed you that two whistleblowers who came forth at committee last week or 2 weeks ago were actually suspended without pay, that being Cameron McDonald and Mr. Antonio Utano, who both worked for the CBSA. Were you informed by the government of that?
So I am aware of that. I cannot recall whether or not I first found out from the government or whether it was in watching the committee hearings. It was around the same time, but I am aware of those that situation.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Chair.
got 30 seconds.
That's fine.
You're done?
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Mr. Janice, you have just under 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Sir, thank you for being here. And I am very concerned about your ability to access information from public servants in conditions where those public servants have been subject to intimidation. With that in mind, I wanted to briefly move a motion, and the motion is that the committee report to the House its grave concern about apparent reprisals against witnesses following their testimony on the ArriveCan app. This is critically important for the integrity of
Point of
the
order,
kinds
Chair.
of investigations
Is this a
that
notice of
parliaments
motion
can
or is
undertake.
it moving a motion?
May I respond to that?
Yes,
Sure.
you may.
I'm moving the motion. It's on the matter at hand. It's on the matter at hand, and I'm moving the motion. Yes. Thank you. And I think the committee will hopefully be able to dispense with this quickly. To review the facts very quickly, Chair, we had testimony at the Government Operations Committee, explosive testimony from Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano about what happened in the context of the ArriveCan scandal. When that testimony occurred, it was surprising and shocking what they were able to reveal in response to questions that members asked. In particular, they identified that a number of other public servants either lied directly or were not honest and forthright with the committee. They responded frankly and directly to questions that were asked in that regard. After their November 7th testimony, later that month, they received letters saying that they were subject to investigation. And while that investigation is still ongoing, these public servants have been suspended without pay. It's an incredibly unusual step that public servants would be suspended without pay in the middle of an investigation into their conduct when no findings have even been reached.
Or made public.
Or made public.
That's the key, that just because we don't know about it doesn't mean there haven't been findings.
Yeah, so I have it on some pretty good authority that this call it angle that the Conservatives are taking is not something that they've done on a whim. It is definitely part of a overall strategy. So it appears that the theory that we discussed last week is actually correct. That just boosts some confidence for Fox and I, because it kind of makes it seem like we know what we're talking about sometimes. But essentially what it means is this theater that the Conservatives are playing here and that they played last week, the whole point of this is to ensure that there is political cover for any other public servants that come out to speak against elected officials. It's cover for if any of those people that do come forward and speak against these elected officials or provide evidence against these elected officials, if they end up being terminated. Because now there is at least some public cover for these people. Remember, be first. That's what we always say. And then it really allows the Conservatives to come right back around if that happens and say, see, this is reprisal. This is absolute reprisal. We told you it could happen, and it just adds more fuel to the fire. What it also does is it prevents other avenues of potential cover-up opportunities by the Liberals as well. So although they are calling those ingrates whistleblowers, it's for a reason. And sometimes you have to dig in the dirt in order to actually bring down the people that you're trying to bring down. And that's essentially the strategy here. Now, Janice is at this meeting putting the same motion forward that he put through in Ogo. And it's no doubt going to be voted down. But the point here is to get it more in the public eye.
Yeah, and then make us ask, why is this voted down again?
Right.
What's going on here? What do they have to hide?
Right. It's to keep the Conservatives and the NDP, it's to keep the Liberals and the NDP on the back foot. Right? They're constantly having to fend off all of these different political attacks by the Conservatives. And what has happened this week, just from their own party and that federal ruling, it has added so many complications and so much more ammunition to the Conservatives to actually go after the Liberals that it's going to be very difficult, if not nigh on impossible, for them to deal with it. Carolyn Grunland with a $5 super chat. I got my sister watching you guys now. Good job.
Awesome.
Good job,
Oh,
Carol.
I have a bit of news for everybody. You've heard me say before that my family is like really hardcore liberal. So I got my 93-year-old grandfather to finally switch sides. That's an accomplishment. I don't even know if I did it. I think Trudeau did it. But the point is, he's not voting Liberal anymore.
Yeah, he said, Trudeau, he's an idiot. Yeah, and he's voted Liberal for like 50 years.
For longer than I've been alive.
So there you go. If a 93-year-old, 50-year Liberal voter can be converted, anybody can. So there is hope. There absolutely is hope for anybody in your family.
And also thank you to Robert Dryberg for joining MP Supporter.
Welcome to the community. Welcome to the club. Head on over to the community section after, and you'll see some stuff you never saw before.
And that they would be informed of that investigation immediately after they provide frank testimony to a parliamentary committee. Now, this speaks to the ability of public servants to be able to provide honest answers to important questions that are asked without fear of intimidation. And it speaks to the right of parliamentarians to actually get the information we need to get to the bottom of the ArriveCan scandal. Of course, many parliamentarians, parliamentary committees, the public has been seized with this scandal. It's true. $54 million were spent on the ArriveCan app. It was spent through a two-person company with no IT expertise. Nobody wants to own up to giving this company this contract, a company that again does no IT work, subcontracted all the work, and got a big payout in the process. Nobody in the public service wants to own up to giving them that contract. And now when we have two public servants who come give frank testimony, they are subject to disciplinary measures immediately after that testimony, before an investigation has even taken place. And this is gravely concerning, and I believe it is designed to send a message to public servants that they should shut up and not reveal the truth to committees. And that is not a message we want sent. So I hope that this committee would consider supporting this motion to report to the House its grave concern about apparent reprisals against witnesses following their testimony on the ArriveCan app. If members are serious about getting to the truth, if members are serious about really finding out what happened here, then we need to have a situation where the Auditor General gets all the documents that they require, and where public servants are free to speak without threats and intimidation. And I would hope that members would support this motion to say that if we are going to get to the bottom of this, we need public servants to be free to speak without threats, without reprisals, without punishment for coming to committees and answering the direct questions of parliamentarians. Thank you.
So, before we get to that, Robert McFallon with a $10 super chat. Nice to see you again, Robert. The legacy media isn't reporting any of this. Thank you both for what you do. Well, thank you very much for your thank you.
Well, and thank all of you for sitting here and watching this with us, because you guys then take this information and you spread it in your communities, you spread it to the people that you know, and that's how we're going to beat this.
Yeah,
I was going to say having conversations with each other is how we are going to get rid of the Liberals.
I was going to say, holy moly, I looked up and there's 1,262 people watching the stream and 750 likes. So if we can close that gap, I believe our record was something like 1365. So we're not too far away from that. Thank you very much, everybody. Dan Demand 966. Nice to see you, Dan. $10 super chat. My grandparents who immigrated from Portugal voted for Trudeau because of his dad brought in European free trade and thought Justin was like his dad. They're now voting for Pierre. Well, I applaud their open-mindedness and practicality.
Well, and this is the thing, and we say this often, is that, if you did vote for Trudeau, in 2015 or any of the other elections, we're not here to demonize you. We're not here to pick on you or anything like that. We hope that through this channel we can show you, okay, so yes, you voted for Trudeau. Now here's all the things that he's done, and here's all the things he hasn't done. So now take that information and decide for yourself. Are you going to vote for him again? Yeah.
Although we sometimes make jokes, people who choose to vote, it's their democratic right. You can be confused about their vote. You can not understand it, but the thing that we have to try to be careful of is you will never convert somebody by insulting them. You will never convert somebody by demonizing them, right? You will only convert somebody by having a reasonable conversation and demonstrating that this narrative that Max Valaket, who has advised Trudeau, who has advised his entire caucus to spout out about far-right politics and, just a bunch of fanatics that are out there. You want to dispel that that narrative that they have. By and large, people who vote Conservative are rational, reasonable human beings that know how to control their emotions, and that also know that the minute you insult somebody, that's when you've lost the argument, because it means that you have no other good points to raise. You're just angry because you can't think of any. So keep having those reasonable conversations, and even if you can't get through them, you'll learn more about the arguments that are being presented. And you can always bring those arguments on the live stream. You can ask those as questions if you're stuck, and we can try and give you an avenue to retort to that if we can. So anyhow, let's continue on and watch as this motion is no doubt voted down. But if you paid attention to the language that Janice was using, it is very strategically chosen, because he is trying to make it nigh on silly to vote against this motion by any of the MPs. But I think we all are expecting what will happen here.
Speaking order in place. Hands went up quickly. Mr. McCauley, you have the floor, please.
So just as a note, when a motion is put forward, there is a established period where the different people in the committee, they can ask questions, they can make statements to kind of get on their soapbox and talk about the motion, and influence people, yay or nay, or just say something they feel needs to be said. That's how the process works. And then when the speaking order is exhausted, then they move to the next step.
Thanks, Chair, and my apologies for not being there in person. I'm fighting a nasty flu bug. Sorry.
Mr. McCauley, I want to interrupt. Just so you know, the motion has been sent to all of your accounts as well. If you did not hear, Mr. Generous, but I think we all did. But back to you, Mr. McCauley. Just want to give notification. The motion's been sent to everyone's account if folks have questions.
Thanks very much.
But over to you.
I am in support of this. I am quite concerned about the issue around the retribution against the whistleblowers. Having been on the OGO committee for over 8 years, where we've been pushing whistleblower protection with no action from this government, I am extremely concerned, especially about some of the details about this case specifically. Here we had the president of CBSA telling us that she did not provide documentation to the CRA or PHAC that led to the suspension of Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano. It was apparently a mere phone call to these departments. You would think they would have provided a whole document package, an investigation. No, it was a mere phone call. And then immediately these gentlemen were stripped of their security status, and therefore, despite being both of them on medical leave, being basically constructively dismissed, being put on suspension without pay, without any investigation into it. It is a very clear sign of a government exacting its revenge on whistleblowers. We've seen this before with the CRA, where they have famously gone after whistleblowers. The case came out about 2 years ago, where it's actually gone to court, where we had whistleblowers who had brought forward issues of sexual assault, sexual harassment, abuse.
Point of order, Chair.
Fired.
Point of order.
This is an
relevant to the motion
issue with this government.
And I'm hoping that Mr. McCauley will save his voice.
Yes.
Sounds pretty nasty. But yes, relevance.
All right, Mr. McCauley. Okay,
to the motion.
Mr. McCauley, I'll turn things back over to you. There was a call for relevance, but I know you'll get back on track.
I'm pretty sure the motion is about reporting to the House about the whistleblowers, and I'm talking about whistleblowers. So
Mr. McCauley is a chair of the OGO committee. I'm pretty sure he understands what's relevance. The look on his face definitely tells that he understands. And that's the interesting thing here is that, Macaulay is the chair of the OGO committee, where the majority of the ArriveCan meetings has happened, and he's here as a participant. So he can actually say all of the things that he's wanted to say during the OGO committee, but he can't because he's the chair and he has to be impartial. But here he can say whatever the heck he wants. So it's actually interesting. Jarsha with a $20 super chat. Thank you for coming by. Tucker was talking about young people being the ones who support Trudeau. Granted, I work a blue-collar job, but I don't know a single millennial who supports him. We paid the heaviest price, seeing our futures destroyed. Yeah,
Very true.
That's a good point. And I think
millennials used to support him.
Yeah, they did.
That was his biggest voter base back in 2015, and a lot of that was due to the promise that he would legalize marijuana, and also the promise that he was going to institute electoral reform.
And now, if you look at the recent polls, that is really started to shift. So he's actually lost one of his biggest power bases, which is the young voters, and women are now starting to abandon Trudeau and come over to the Conservatives. So, like, literally all walks of life are walking away from Trudeau.
Yeah, there was a poll, I want to say it was by Nanos back in the fall, that broke down the different parties by like age and sex in terms of who votes for whom. And Trudeau's base at the time was mainly women, but especially women over 55. Now, that probably has changed because from what I've heard, the millennial vote has definitely gone over to the Conservatives, as well as the Gen Z vote. And that's why Max Valiquette was actually hired, because he's supposed to be a quote-unquote millennial/Gen Z expert in terms of marketing. I don't think it's working out too well for him.
No, not too well at all. At all. So, Craig Robertson with a $2 super chat. This stream has been the best part of my day. Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Glad we could be here with you.
And let's make sure that we're up to date. And we are. All right. So, anyway, let's get back to Mr. Macaulay, who just seems bewildered that there was a point of order objection from the Liberals on a call for relevance when this is a motion about whistleblowers and reprisals, and he's literally talking about whistleblowers and reprisals with another department, and he's talking about the fact that it is a history and a pattern within this government.
Perhaps.
Sorry, just to clarify, Chair.
With the flu, but I don't understand the relevance issue.
Just one second. Is this a point of order, Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Yes.
I want
just again, if you have a point of order, say point of order. I'll recognize
Point of order,
you.
Chair.
Okay, perfect.
To clarify, the motion talks about witnesses. There's no mention of whistleblowers in this motion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khalid.
Really? That's Khalid, by the way. MP Khalid. Point of order, Chair. Semantics. Like, that's really all she has to say. Because, and look at Williamson knows this is an absolutely absurd point of order. He's laughing. Like, it doesn't specifically say whistleblowers. It says witnesses. Like, shut up.
You're coming off the speaking list as well. Mr. Macaulay, back to you.
I think the Liberals are splitting hairs for a reason, and this clearly goes back to their disdain for anyone who would dare challenge their narrative, anyone who comes forward and points out the truth. And here we have two Liberal members trying
Another
to
point of order, Chair, on relevance to this motion.
Well,
relevance to this
I think,
motion, Chair.
Mr. Macaulay, I'll turn things back over to you. Mr. Macaulay, I think, is responding to the points of order, and I'm sure is wrapping things up to get back onto his point.
Yes. As I was trying to say before, the Liberals continue to try to interrupt any disagreement with their point of view, or perhaps any investigation in their continual ineptness or corruption. I think this is a very important motion that Mr. Jennis has put forward. I think this is something the House needs to hear from. We have very clear, exploding evidence that continues to come forward about this issue. There are people who have been suspended without pay. People's lives have been destroyed by this government, and I hope that we will move forward with this motion and address this issue.
Just a little bit about Macaulay. Macaulay comes across as so sweet and polite and Meek, but we've talked to our MP, and there's a different side of him that our MP's talked about, and it's one you don't want to mess with from what he said. He can be very stern. He can be from the impression that he gave us, he can be very intimidating, which is interesting, because you look at him in you know, he has a nice smile and he has a relatively quiet voice, but his advice to us is you never want to get on his bad side, and that's fascinating to me. And sometimes it's the quiet people that you really want to be careful of. And I'm sure all of you know that person in your life that they're like, oh, they're such a nice person. Don't get them angry. And that is Mr. Kelly McCauley right here.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jennings, for putting it forward.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Mr. Johns, you have the floor.
Oh, God.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to say this, that Mr. Jennings just brought a very similar motion to Government Operations Committee, which was defeated. So it seems that he's moving along from committee to committee to try to move this motion to the House, when he knows full well that this can be included in the final report. He can raise these concerns in the final report.
Johns, the point of raising this now is so you can call these witnesses now in order to include their testimony and have them not be fired for coming forward to speak against this government, so that information and testimony can actually be included in the final report. You dolt. Like, come on. I'm sorry. Sorry, Johns, you are out of my books. You're not even in the bad books or the good books. You're just out of my library. You have completely just destroyed any integrity that you have had. You were doing well. You were doing so well for a couple of committees there. And now this. And the fact that you're saying that motion was defeated isn't something to brag about. Yeah, he brought forward this motion that whistleblowers should be protected and not fear of reprisal, and that motion was already defeated. It's not really a good thing. Not something you want to kind of put up your hand and say, hey, I voted against that. But just saying.
Now I'm going to talk a little bit about Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, who wasn't not very long ago, was testifying before Government Operations Committee. And I'm sure it sounds like he was at more than one committee, because the Conservatives have this at 4 committees, this study going. And like I said, could be focusing on things like housing and other things that are a real crisis in this country. I'm not saying that we don't want to get to the bottom of this. We have to get to the bottom of this. But the outsourcing issue that ArriveCan has is reflected in many different contracts, I'm sure. Started under the Conservatives, where outsourcing doubled under the big 6 consulting companies. It's gone up 400% under the Liberals, and it's out of control, but it started with cuts to the public service by the Conservatives. This was actually cemented by Michael Wernick, who testified at Government Operations Committee, saying that when the Conservatives gutted, senior public officials in 2012, that this caused huge problems when it comes to leadership, and now it's costing us in outsourcing to outside consultants to fill the void. The other thing is, we heard when the Conservatives were on the witch hunt around McKinsey, is that we couldn't get some information from redacted documents, and it started with government policy in the Privy Council office that was set by the Conservatives. You can't make this stuff up. Conservatives were upset because they couldn't get information. I support that documents shouldn't be redacted before committee, but it started with their own policies. And this was affirmed at committee by the Privy Council office. So they know full well that they implemented policies that were going to make it difficult for future governments. Then they tried to use that as an excuse to not getting access to information. This started with the Conservatives. Now, I'm going to go to what's going on with Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, because I saw these 2 witnesses testify before us at our committee where we tried to get some answers. And they were absolutely grilled by the Conservatives. They were attacked by the Conservatives when they testified. There is no way that anyone could watch the tape of those committees and believe that now the Conservatives have their best interests at heart. That is absolutely hard to believe, when it comes to what really took place there. Now, I want to talk about reprisals as well. And I want to talk about policies that we've seen and failures to address protecting people like Mr. McDonald or Mr. Utano or any public servant that wants to, that feels that they're under threat by government for coming forward. We know.
Is it confusing to anybody else how John's, he won an election as an MP? Just think about that. He won.
Yeah, but some places will vote for the party, not necessarily who's running. You know what I mean? Some people will just check off NDP or check off Conservative, and they don't care who the actual person is.
Yeah, I know. And they probably had these Mickey Mouse debate times and stuff like that, which nobody watched. But it's just, man, some of these MPs, I look at them and I'm like, how did you get elected? But
so we understand that there's been some issues with the super chats in the chat this evening. We have one from Chandler D that I guess didn't go through. We're not seeing it on our end. But it says, Mr. Speaker, point of order. If you are intending to do a super chat, we highly suggest that you shut down your browser or your YouTube app itself and then give it a reboot, just because we've had, I think, up to 3 people now saying that there's been issues. So just before if you would like to make a donation, before you do that, if you could please restart your app.
So, apologize for that. We are not ignoring them. We are just not seeing them. Also, check your email to make sure that you did get the receipt for it, and that way you'll know that it actually did go through. You should get it, almost immediately. So that's a YouTube thing. That's not a Northern Perspective thing.
So we do apologize for that.
If it was a Northern Perspective thing, it'd be working all the time, right?
There you go.
Unless it's audio, then
then it's off to Mendocino Island.
That's right.
Brave Canadians who report wrongdoing or crimes in their workplace often experience consequences like losing their income, health, and happiness, all for speaking the truth. All Canadian workers should feel free to safe reporting workplace crimes and negligence. Absolutely, we support that as New Democrats.
Then you should be.
And Canada has the worst whistleblowing laws, tied with Lebanon, and the Liberals and the Conservatives teamed up to make sure this doesn't change under Bill C-290, under a number of amendments. Now, we heard from David Hutton, who spoke in the Hill Times. He said that when the Conservatives reform whistleblowing laws under the Harper government, and actually that was Pierre Poilievre was the minister in charge at the time, the leader of the official opposition, that they actually made things worse. So here we are with whistleblower laws tied with Lebanon in worst whistleblower laws in the world. Libs and the cons teamed up to defeat numerous amendments that would have strengthened protections for whistleblowers. They voted.
So before I get to dissecting his poor argument, Casper H., nice to see you again with 10 Northern Perspective gifted memberships. Thank you so much for that, Casper. And if you've received one of those, please ensure that you give Casper some love. And Rhonda Davey with a $2 super chat. Testing 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Thank you very much for that, Rhonda. So, yeah, I love the fact that John's is like, when in doubt, blame the Conservatives of yesteryear, right? Blame the Conservatives of over 10 years ago.
Well, they're not there to defend themselves.
So, it's just absolutely silly. Louise A. King, member for 5 months. Thanks for sticking with us. Why is it that whenever I listen to the Liberals or the NDP speak, I want to stick a fork in my eye? Sorry, but John's is a knob. I would highly recommend you stick the fork in your ear rather than your eye. Then you at least have to stop listening to them.
We don't recommend. Official statement, Northern Perspective does not recommend sticking forks anywhere.
Yeah, don't stick any flatware anywhere near your face unless you're going to eat.
What we do recommend is that you give us a thumbs up because we're about 350 behind. So please,
we're getting there.
Please help out the stream by giving us a thumbs up.
Once we get to at least 1,000, Fox will pass out 5 free memberships. And no, we can't do that.
No, we can't do that. YouTube limits us. But I will say thank you.
Oh, I thought we were able to give it a free membership. I guess not. So, Cypher fails.
Back to Mendocino Island.
Put it against many amendments to Bill C-290 that we put forward and the Bloc put forward. And it's not surprising for the Liberals, their rich friends aren't worried about whistleblowing, so they're not. And Pierre Poilievre, like I said, and the Conservatives, well, they always prop up big bosses, not workers. Ask workers about that. Ask unions about that. Canada needs stronger whistleblowing protections so that there's more transparency and accountability of government and the public service to protect all workers. New Democrats, we're committed to protecting the rights and safety of all workers. And that's why we're pushing to make sure Canada has the strongest whistleblowing protections possible. And the whistleblowing laws are important because of how weak our protections for whistleblowers are. Less wrongdoing will be reported and stopped. Protecting whistleblowers is necessary to protect Canadian lives and security. And whistleblowing reports protect Global's Canada's reputation and relationships. We saw Luc Sabourin. He came and testified at Government Operations Committee. He reported that superiors at Passport Canada were destroying foreign passports, then logging that they had returned them to the foreign embassies. He endured 8 years of harassment and abuse, hand sanitizer in his coffee,
point of order,
threats
Chair.
to his children's safety.
Point of order, Chair.
Just 1 second, Mr. John's got a point of order from Mr. Genuous.
Yeah, Chair, I had hoped that my motion would be able to just proceed quickly to a vote, but
what's your point of order, please?
On the matter of order, I mean, there are parameters around relevance, and I know that the NDP Liberal coalition, if they wanted this whistleblower reform, they could have put it into their coalition deal, but it's not the motion in front of us. The motion is very specific to certain matters.
This is a period of debate, and I do allow members latitude to express themselves.
It's all going to be tied to it. I promise, Mr.
Yeah, no, John, I'm giving you allowance here. I hope you will illuminate us as to what side of this motion you're on. I appreciate your overview, but if you could also address the motion as well. Thank you.
Go back to Mr.
Before I get to that, Mr. Roscoe Pico with $5 super chat. Make sure your messages are less than 150 characters, or it won't send. Yeah, I've actually found that super chats, the amount is, or the amount you're able to type is dependent on how much you're sending. YouTube, loves to throw that limit in there. So the more you spend, the more you can type. It's kind of weird, but that's the way YouTube runs. But looks like we're working, and there you go. We passed 1,000, and Fox was able to pass out 5 Northern Perspective memberships. So Fox gets to go to Mendocino Island, and Cypher gets to come back. So there we go.
Not really. I used your credit card.
Oh, there you go. So 5 Northern Perspective memberships on Cypher then. Okay. So, it's funny. The NDP is all about unions and protecting workers. But in my experience, the number one threat to the union workers is the union executives themselves. Now, I'm not going to derail the stream and go on this kind of a tirade, but I know lots of great people that work in unions, but if you've paid attention, and let's just focus on the Public Servants Alliance of Canada, if you've paid attention to anything that they have done, it is disgusting what they do to their union members. I'm sorry. It is absolutely atrocious. And if you speak up as a union member against them, holy crap, they blackball you. If the strikes that happened, some of you may have heard this, the strikes that actually happened last year, if you didn't show up to a strike, then the union would fine you over $1,000 for not showing up.
I think it was per day too.
Per day.
It? Yeah.
Like, it is disgusting what these unions do. And, it's not necessarily the union per se. It's the union executives. And they're not the ones that actually have to go out and strike. They're getting paid. They're getting paid by the union dues. It's everybody else that has to go out. So it's these corrupt union executives that are not acting in the best interest of their unions. Look at the nurses union in Ontario. They are complaining that that their nurses aren't paid enough. Well, they're the ones that accepted a 1% increase on the last contract.
That's actually going to court, I believe, or it's been thrown out. My nursing friend was talking about it. I don't quite remember what she said, though.
Like, it is insane. So, like, the Public Service Alliance of Canada and is one bad example. The Nurses Union in Ontario, that is, well, there's a couple of them. That is another example. But these executives, I'm sorry, but you get paid a lot of money and you don't act in the best interest of your members. Not at all. Trish Pearl with a $5 super chat. Then every NDP should vote to protect whistleblowers. 100%, Trish.
You think they would, but here Johns is filibustering.
Yeah. And the funny thing is John's actually talked enough about it to justify, okay, so then you should be voting for this. And therefore it should pass. But pretty sure we all know where it's going to go.
And I can't recall if this one was read or not. We have the dude with a $2 super chat. Thank you very much. It says, I blame Putin's chalet or cottage.
There you go.
Yep.
And Craig Robertson with a $5 super chat. The more money you have, the more you can say. Sounds like a liberal ideal. 50 characters for anything under $5. There you go. And I wish we could control that, but alas, we cannot. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Mr. Sovereign, because he endured 8 years of harassment and abuse, and he deserves to have some time here on the floor today. Hand sanitizer in his coffee, threats to his children's safety before losing his career in 2016 and almost losing his life. You know, whistleblower reports save lives. 1996, Michelle Brill Edwards also lost her career after she reported that Big Pharma was influencing the drug approval process in Canada, endangering Canadian lives. Now, we put forward amendments. Our amendment to allow whistleblowers to go to the public or media in specific situations where, for example, the commissioner isn't dealing with the complaint or decides not to do anything to stop the wrongdoing, both the Liberals and the Conservatives both oppose this. So now whistleblowers are at huge risk if they expose wrongdoing to the Canadian public because of the Conservatives. I'm going to underline that.
Did he say that was in the 80s? Did I hear that right?
He's all over the place. It's hard to follow him.
It is hard to follow.
But here's the thing. All of that is moot, Johns, because your boss, Mr. Singh, keeps saying that he has the power to make this government do whatever he wants. So don't come crying to committee and say, oh, well, you know, the whistleblower stuff that the Conservatives did. You guys have had 3 years, and you haven't done anything. The only thing you've done is some useless dental program. Congratulations. You haven't actually focused on the important stuff, like affordability, like housing. You know, you just want to, jack yourselves up with your stupid little promises.
Well, because if there's any party that believes you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, it's the NDP. They are extremely socialist.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Like, they just don't respect property rights. And I would imagine they don't respect taxpayer dollars either. They say they do, but I don't think they do.
But I'll summarize Mr. Johns' testimony. How to tell everybody not to vote NDP without telling everybody not to vote NDP.
Oh, but we knew that already.
Interim relief would have protected whistleblowers from punishments like termination as soon as they reported wrongdoing. Instead, we're allowing punishments to happen, then spending years investigating whether they were indeed punished. This is exactly what's going on. Reverse onus. Right now, the whistleblower has to prove reprisal. Example, if they were fired, they have to prove it because they were reported wrongdoing, which is virtually impossible. This amendment would have forced their superiors to prove there was a real reason to fire them. That's the amendment that Conservatives defeated. In other jurisdictions, this brings the chances of success from as low as 1 in 100 to as high as 1 in 3. But the Liberals and Conservatives teamed up to vote against it. They didn't support it. These amendments were contrary to the advice of all experts and whistleblowers who testified and submitted briefs to the Government Operations Committee. And this is relevant right now, Mr. Chair, to what's going on right here. Because some of our amendments were not voted on because both the Liberals and Conservatives spoke against them. Now, we got amendments passed to improve whistleblowers' access to the tribunal. We did a lot of really important work. But I wanted to highlight this because this is exactly relevant to what Mr. Jenius is trying to say about Mr. Utano, Mr. McDonald. If they were really in their corner, they would have supported those amendments on Bill C-290. He also knows full well that back to the Auditor General's report, we're waiting for that report. Then this committee could do its final report and include his concerns in that. This is absolutely, this meeting was unnecessary. It's the charade. It's costing taxpayers money, which doesn't seem to be a problem when it comes to conservatives at public accounts or at government operations, international trade, at ethics, where they're doing 4 different committees, tying them up on this very issue while people are on the streets of our country homeless. I can understand 4 committees tying up committee because of homeless people. That's costing us much more than the economic leakage of ArriveCan.
So I'm going to, yes, sorry, Ms. Johns, you are now repeating for the 3rd time something that you have previously said under 2 points of orders. It's not really relevant to the motion.
Fine. I'm done with my time then.
Thank you very much.
Point.
Appreciate that, Mr. Johns.
Yeah, thank you. And again, don't be coming crying to committee about housing because you've had 3 years to deal with this with the Liberals and you've done jack. Someone who has done something is Humble Tracker with another 20 gifted Northern Perspective memberships. Thank you very, very much, Humble Tracker. I don't know if you've done another one recently that I can't see, but you might have actually. So if you have given another 20 that I didn't see, I will thank you for that as well. Looks like everybody's getting promoted tonight. Let's keep going.
Khalid, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to thank Mr. Hayes for taking the time to be here today.
And to sit through all
and
our
I also noted that your opening remarks were word for word exactly the same that you had on October 12th, I think minus the last sentence. So I think, Chair, we all knew that Mr. Hayes does not have much to contribute by way of answering questions in this committee. And I think that we knew that. And now that I see that we've received this table-dropped motion, I understand why perhaps we are here today. And I find that to be a little bit disingenuous, Chair. I remember the last meeting that we had in the last year. We had suspended the meeting. All members from all parties had gotten together and worked on a motion on this very topic. We had laid it out. We built consensus because that is what our committee should be doing. And for us to be here, knowing full well, Chair, that we have a witness who is not able to speak on a report that is not going to become, it's not going to be tabled until February 12th, having spent a whole meeting working out a plan on this, and now to go back to another emergency meeting, just like we did on October 12th, again, where we heard from Ms. Hogan, who said, as you know, since this report has not been tabled yet in Parliament, I am not in a position to discuss our findings. And she repeated that consistently throughout the meeting. So
I just want to pause the ear sandpaper here and get to Jerry Savoy's super chat for $5. Thank you very much, John. Just shut up and say say conservatives save some conservatives wasting money. But what about NDP and the Liberal Party? Yes, 100%, Jerry. And it looks like you got your wish. He shut up, but then we regifted Ikra Khalid as a result. But yeah, so she was born in 1985, so she is one of the younger MPs, and that kind of explains a lot. Robert McFallon with another $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Humble Tracker is clearly a fan of citizen journalism. Thanks. Yes, she very much is, and we are eternally grateful for the amount of support that she has given this channel. She is definitely a very kind soul. Moving on, and we're over halfway through this. Don't worry, folks.
My question here, Chair, I would ask is, if we wanted to discuss this motion that is being presented by Mr. Genuis, then why are we wasting Mr. Hayes' time in being here? We could have just called a meeting for this. Better yet, we could have called a meeting at the regular time of our meetings as they come, as they arise, which is literally 3-4 days from
point
now.
Of order, Chair.
So I am speaking
just sorry,
to the
Ms.
motion,
Khalid,
Chair.
Mr. McCauley, what's your point of order?
Well, I think we are discussing Mr. Genevis's motion, not Mr. Hayes' attendance at this meeting.
Again, I'm going to I'll let Ms. Khalid continue, and then we'll hear from other members.
Thanks, Chair. And I just want to highlight some of the points that Mr. Johns had made as well with respect to Mr. Genuis's motion. One that it seems to be a little bit disingenuous to present it in various committees, knowing that, just being a visiting member of a committee and
I'm just going to
table-dropping
stop
a
you.
motion.
So every time you say something's disingenuous, you are imputing the chair. That is fine. You're not crossing the line. My job is to oversee the government. This is an opposition-run committee. I will call a meeting when I think it is worthwhile. You don't like it, you can take actions. But to suggest that I'm being disingenuous by calling a meeting is out of bounds. Mr. Genuis, like all members, are entitled to bring forward any motion they like the day of the meeting that is relevant. He has done so. If you're implying we're in cahoots, you are wrong. I called this meeting on the information that I was received from Mr. McCauley on thousands of pages of documents. Referring back, you were right. The Auditor General said the exact same thing about that October 12th meeting. And guess what? Not only did this committee find out something that we did not previously know, that the OAG had been, withheld information to the OAG by the department about a police investigation. That was relevant. Number two, the OAG actually delayed the release of their report so they could go back and review documents. So this committee is doing its job by overseeing the government. It will continue to do so. So if you're going to keep calling my actions disingenuous for doing my job, I'm going to find you out of line. Back to you, Ms. Khalid. You're welcome to address the motion or my behavior, but do so directly without impugning my motives. Thank you.
Hear, hear. Wow, standing ovation from John Williamson. Absolutely. He's another one of these guys. He's very, very polite, but he just snapped to right there and gave her a verbal shellacking. That was great. No, you don't get to impugn the chair. Who the hell do you think you are, lady? Very well done. God, it's good to see, when people stand up to this hypocrisy and you get to watch it in real time. So this is great. If nothing else happens, that was extremely satisfying. Just saying. And looks like everybody else is in agreement with me. So yeah, sit down, young lady, and conduct yourself accordingly.
Thank you, Chair, for your clarification, but I will respectfully say that it is not your job to hold the government to account. It is this committee's job. And the point that I was trying to make earlier is that we have been able to build consensus. We worked together on a motion, figured out the language. We have been finding ways, at least on our side, to build that consensus and to do the job of this committee. So what I'm trying to say here is, Chair, that neither was this meeting an emergency, nor is this motion an emergency, which we have seen in showing up in other committees, as Mr. Johns has pointed out. And what I am trying to say is that none of the members on our side, at least, were consulted on this at all, even though we have shown good faith time and time and time again to find ways to work together to do the job of this committee.
Yeah, she's not getting it. And yes, Chandler D, your $5 super chat did go through this time. So as you said, let's hope super chat works this time. Do you think that's John's blood pressure or the lighting in the room? Why not both?
Yeah, it could be both for sure. For sure.
But he is leaning forward, so all the blood is rushing into his cheeks probably. But, yeah. He that's all I should respectfully say.
We have a $2 super chat from LC. Thank you very much. It says, so glad you are covering this.
Thank you very much.
We are glad as well. Yeah, it's very important, I think, for citizens to see the inner workings of the government and exactly what goes on.
Yeah, and although, so this stuff here, I admit probably 3 or 4 years ago, I would probably find this obscenely boring. But because now I kind of know what's going on, I view it as chess. Right, so you're watching the board and you're watching the pieces move, and everyone who speaks, they're moving a piece across the board. So that's kind of how I see it. Call it like Neo after he woke up and became the one, and he saw the Matrix and the code. I kind of see the code. And that's what I see when all of this stuff plays out. So I get to translate that code for people that can't see it, but I'm pretty sure, we have a very informed viewership now that you guys are seeing, what's going on along with me. And if you can't, well, that's why I'm here. But it's just a real pleasure for us to hang out with 1,200 people on a Thursday evening to ensure that we're holding this government to account just as much as the people in the room are. So I think it's very important.
And I know you folks were asking about the like count. It's currently at 1,103.
Yeah, so we just passed 1,100. Great job, chat. But we're still about 131 behind.
And we still have a couple super chats. So we have Robert McFallon with a $5 super chat. Says, Humble Tracker is clearly a fan of citizen journalism. Thanks.
I read that.
And we also have LC with another $2 super chat. Thank you. It says, very simply, it just says lies. Very simple and very accurate, I think. And also, I think I need to scold Barnaby a little bit for being sweet on Khalid in the chat there.
Hey, Barnaby.
Remember whose team you're on.
We'll talk after the stream.
No one member is a representative of this committee, Chair, and I respectfully submit that to you. So I would hope that going forward, we would continue to act in good faith of the consensus that we're trying to build here, of holding the government to account and to ensure that we're not wasting public servants' times as they're trying to do their job, that we're not trying to interfere in the work of the OAG, etc. I will leave it there, Chair, but I hope that we can continue to find better ways to work together rather than having meetings that are completely unscheduled and unconsulted with all members of this committee. Thanks, Chair.
Well, you wouldn't have to have these meetings if you wouldn't shut them down and just motion to adjourn whenever the heck you feel like it. Chris Drake with a $10 super chat. Northern Perspective is probably my favorite channel. Great job, guys. Here's to a scandalous 2024. And that is Chris's first super chat on the live stream. Thank you very much for that, Chris.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just saw this comment. Platinum Sniper, she's cute. Sad that she's a liberal. I can fix her.
Oh boy, good luck, my friend.
You're going to need a lot of tools. Paradoxy with a $50 super chat. Thank you so much. Hi, sorry I'm late and missed you all Sunday night. The government can go to Governor General and request dissolution of government for irreconcilable differences. Basically, which chair would suggest that to her? Well, there you go.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. I'm going to have to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor.
Beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would just like to say that we are here apparently to make a bit of publicity for a meeting that's going to happen eventually in this committee.
Yes, it is. That's the theater.
With the Auditor General. I believe that this is a waste of time. I believe it is also a waste of this committee's resources. Everybody knows this. Everybody would know that all members of parties, except for the Conservatives, had caucus meetings this week. There was no consultation whatsoever with anyone, apart from somebody else, and this is a waste of time.
Second, Ms. Shanahan. Yes, Mr. Johns, you have the floor.
I just want to, I think this will help Ms. Shanahan too. It's just a point of clarification that Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, and this is directly related to this motion, were not whistleblowers. They didn't report any misconduct. They didn't raise any alarms.
Mr. John, that's Mr. John. You're on. I'll get back to you. This is not. I appreciate Mr. Johns. Mr. Johns. I appreciate this is not a point of order, and you are down on the list again. I have on the speaking list Ms. Shanahan, Mr. Brock, Madame Sinclair-Desgagne, Mr. Genuis, and then after that, Mr. Johns. You will have a chance to rebut this. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. You have the floor again.
Justement, parce que je veux.
Thank you. I just, for the record, would like to say the following. I'm saying this also for my constituents. They expect the work that we do at public accounts to be good. They have so much respect for us and our work because we are a consensus-based committee. We've always been. Doesn't matter who the chair was, whether it's a conservative chair. I'm thinking here about Mr. Sorensen. I know there are other chairs. But at the end of the day, it was always a consensus-based. Now, however, we're seeing a more adversarial procedure underway. It's almost as if we're in a court of law.
Well, at least in court, you get the truth.
It's a waste of time. Everybody knows what the issue is.
It's even the translator can't understand what the hell
People think that we don't necessarily want to talk about this very important issue. That is false. This is an issue of crucial importance, and we will always work together to tackle such issues. We like working together with the committee and with the Auditor General.
Yes, Mr. McCauley, point of order, please.
Unless we voted on this and I missed it somehow, we are debating the motion. It'd be nice if someone actually got to actually debating the motion at hand.
No, well, fair enough. As you know, I allow for latitude, and members are expressing themselves. There's some irritation for having a meeting outside of the parliamentary calendar, and members are entitled to have that to feel that way. I don't. So we're at work here, and I'll turn back to Ms. Shanahan. I think you were concluding, but maybe not. I'm certainly not pulling the mic, but back to you. But again, I'm just going to remind everyone, we have a nice speaking list. Mr. January, you're on the speaking list.
Sure, I have a point of order as well.
What is your point of order? And then we'll go back to Ms. Shanahan.
Chair, just to speed things up, I wonder if there would be, given what's being said, if there would be unanimous consent of the committee to proceed to a vote on this motion. We'd be ready to do that if there's unanimous consent.
Yeah.
What's a request for unanimous consent? Is there agreement?
No. Well, I can tell there's not agreement. So, Ms. Shanahan, back to you, please.
You can request you see on points of order, but it seems
Ms. Shanahan has the floor. Ms. Shanahan, you have the floor, please.
Merci beaucoup, parce que...
No, I want to complain. This is the logic that the Liberals are using. I want to complain that this is a waste of time and that we're wasting committee resources. But I would rather waste time in committee resources by talking about something that is not relevant to the motion at hand at all and can continue wasting everybody's time.
Well, I want to say hello to our friend Construction Cronies in the chat. Go check out his channel. It's got some really interesting information about building houses and all sorts of wonderful stuff. And he has a documentary coming out soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see it, Mr. Cronies. Now, let's get back to the Liberal cronies.
Thank you very much. I'm about to wrap up, indeed. I just wanted to make sure that everyone listening in at home understands that our committee is working on the ArriveCan issue.
Isn't it interesting that they know that people are watching this now? Like, people never used to watch committee. Guaranteed. I never even knew about committee. Most Canadians didn't know about committee probably until like the last 12 months. But they know people are watching it now.
Because again, if a government is running smoothly and things are going well, you don't have to have eyes on them. You trust that they're going to keep your best interests at heart and do their jobs. And that is not what has been happening in Canada.
Yeah. But that's good. I'm glad they know we're watching. I really, really am.
We are working with the AG. This meeting is a sideshow.
Your sweater's
Everybody
a sideshow.
knows what's going on and what the Conservative Party is trying to do. I know that other people want to speak, and I look forward to listening to my Bloc Québécois colleague as well.
For that, avant ça, c'est Mr.
Before that, we have Mr. Brock.
Block members. So Mr. Brock, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important that we go back to the actual motion that was introduced probably 45 minutes ago. The committee report to the House its grave concern about apparent reprisals against witnesses following their testimony on the ArriveCan app. That is the motion. And what we have heard from the Liberals and the NDP is anything but the importance and urgency of this particular matter. The House needs to have this matter before it so that all members, all parliamentarians, have a chance to speak to this. You know, Ms. Shanahan uses comments about urgency and how important this is, and we want to telegraph to Canadians that we're taking this serious. We take our job serious. But she forgets exactly what happened on October the 12th when the Auditor General appeared, and after they were embarrassed, the entire Liberal bench embarrassed, as well as the NDP, that the Auditor General, you know, Ms. Shanahan, you can laugh all you want, but Canadians are watching me, and they're watching you laughing at me, and it's not a good look. You and your party and the NDP deliberately shut down the ability of the Auditor General to answer questions for a 2-hour period.
Yes, Ms.
I
Shannon.
am being spoken to directly, so I would like to respond to that.
That is
and there is no shutting down going on. We were proceeding with this work on bonne et due forme.
Thank you.
And Mr. Brock, that he doesn't like the timing of it, I'm sorry. I can't help him there.
That is a very good reminder that point should be referred to the chair.
Chair.
So, yes, I appreciate your understanding, Mr. Brock. Back to you.
And she can remind Canadians of what she did, but the fact of the matter remains that after they were embarrassed, that the government did not inform, nor the CBSA inform the Auditor General, who was starting an investigation now that the RCMP were involved, was an absolute embarrassment. The Auditor General confirmed she only read about it, knew about it, after reading the article in the Globe and Mail. I was the one that asked that question, Mr. Chair, and the moment I concluded my round, this was the first round of questioning to the Auditor General, the first member of the Liberal bench who had the floor moved to adjourn, which I believe was Ms. Khalid, who moved to adjourn, and they had the votes to adjourn the meeting.
I remember that. I think that was the video that kind of prompted us to put together the ArriveCan video, the first one.
Yeah, because I think, if I remember correctly, we were getting ready to do a live stream, and all of a sudden it was canceled.
Yeah. Actually, that was the other one.
That was the other one.
That
Oh, see, they've done it more than once. I can't keep track.
Well, that was the SNC Lavalin one that you're thinking of. But,
yes, you are correct.
We heard about this after the fact, and I ended up including some of that footage into the ArriveCan video. So it's actually funny how this works out. If the Liberals hadn't done that, and the Conservatives hadn't ran to social media and let everybody know that, we may have never done that video, and they wouldn't have had thousands of Canadians paying attention to this even more than they already had. So it's funny how that works out. And Karma. Hunsford with a $20 super chat. Thank you very much. I am looking forward to getting home from work to watch you expose this corruption. Come on, 5 a.m. I hope Brock really laid into them. You two are awesome. Namaste. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and Brock, I think, laid into them pretty well right now.
Yeah, a couple times. And if you hadn't heard earlier, the chair laid into them pretty good. So, so thank you very much. And that is Hunsford's first super chat on live stream. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated.
Thereby wasting the ability of the Auditor General to shed light on the full parameter of this ArriveCan audit. And now, over the course of several months, which is the genesis behind the wording in motion number 2, we have direct evidence that 2 senior members of the CBSA, Mr. McDonald, a former Director General of the CBSA, and Mr. Antonio Utano, another former executive, senior executive of the CBSA, testified not under oath, but knowing that they were there to tell the truth, pointed fingers and identified the president, Ms. O'Gorman, and the past president, Mr. Osowski, as well as Mr. Christian Firth and other members of the IT companies that were associated with not only the ArriveCan issue, but also the issue involving another IT company, Bottler AI, had deliberately misled the Government Operations Committee. They informed the committee that they had evidence to produce to the committee to confirm their findings, that it wasn't just a he said, she said, or a he said, depending on the witnesses involved and the players involved. They actually had witnesses who could come to committee to, again, support the findings of both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, that our committee, that this national government committee was deliberately misled by the CBSA. That is something that the Auditor General should be concerned about. Now, whether that's enough for them to alter their report, that's an issue for another day. That could be an issue following the release of the report to Parliament. But it's incumbent upon members of this committee to inform the Auditor General what has transpired. They testified on November the 7th of 2023. In exchange for that testimony, they both received letters from their new respective employers, Mr. Utano at Canada Revenue Agency, Mr. McDonald at Health Canada, that they were now suspended due to allegations of misconduct. Now, allegations of misconduct that Mr. Hayes would certainly be aware of were brought to the attention of the CBSA in November of 2022. And Ms. O'Gorman testified a number of times, Mr. Chair, at committee, that she took that very seriously, so much so that she did an internal review, found that there was a prima facie case, and referred the matter to the RCMP for a full investigation in November of 2022. But interestingly enough, which goes to the heart of this motion, it would appear that the findings in support of the suspension without pay for McDonald and Utano were only made after they testified truthfully and pointed fingers about CBSA officials lying to committee. That is a reprisal. And what sort of message are we as members allowing the federal public service, the professional federal public service, that we often hear that phrase from the Prime Minister and his cabinet and members of the Liberal bench, that they take pride and respect the professional federal public service. But these shenanigans that are happening right now with the professional federal public service is disgusting.
Yes, it certainly is. And, you know, regarding the words that they're using to describe McDonald and Utano, don't necessarily agree with them, but you know, there's a strategy at play here, and the strategy is to get Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland and these Liberals out. But just know that, you know, Bottler has acted with the utmost integrity throughout all of this, and they deserve support. Had skill in the 90s. Had skill in the 90s. Welcome to NP Supporter. Thank you very much for joining our membership. And Don Wickenden with a $10 super chat. Son called. I'll catch this one later. I assume you mean mwah to everybody.
Thank you very much.
I'll just wave. Thank you so much, Don, and for your support on our videos online over the last couple days.
And it ought not to happen. And we owe it to Canadians. We owe it to the Auditor General. We owe it to all parliamentarians to shed as much light on this as possible. Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano are both on medical leave, supported by documentation from their respective doctors as to what personal health toll they coming forward has had on them. The accusations, the death threats from the Canadian public that they have received is concerning. They also have the specter of being investigated or under investigation by the RCMP. Both testified very emotionally and raw about the real impact and effects that this is having. So what about those witnesses? What about those witnesses that they said will come to committee and support and corroborate what kind of shenanigans the CBSA has been involved in at the taxpayer's expense? What kind of message does that send to the other professional federal public servants? Will they want to come forward? Can they expect a suspension letter as a result of coming forward? These are serious concerns, and Mr. John should be all over these serious concerns and want to vote in favor of this motion because it strikes at heart of his argument. And
that's exactly what I said. Brock and I are on the same page. This is the strategy, folks, right there. It's actually nothing to do with McDonald and Utano. It has everything to do with everybody else. And I would be surprised if the Conservatives were not talking behind the scenes to other whistleblowers. If I'm them, I'm hoping to get that one alleged contact by Von Brennan, who is in Chrystia Freeland's office, into committee. That's the unicorn that they're chasing if I have my money anywhere near this. If they can get that person into committee and they can tell what happened and what was going on within her office, that might be game over for the Liberal government.
Let's talk about how unusual this is. We had the former clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Warnick, chime in. He said as follows, that the public finger-pointing by senior public servants is highly unusual, and given his tenure as a professional federal public servant, he says, I cannot recall any other instance of such public disagreement. It is an outlier. Suspensions without pay are also rare.
Humble Tracker, though, with a $100 super chat. Thank you so much. Just because I can. Love what you both do. Love the chat expanding. Love the freedom fighter in here. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Very much, Humble Tracker. You are loved by all.
It is a very strong measure to suspend without pay while a process is underway and no conclusions have been reached. Usually, disciplinary measures follow an investigation being completed, and suspension with pay is more common in the early stages. And lastly, because this has never been communicated to this committee, it also sends a very strong measure, it is also a very strong measure to suspend or permanently revoke a security clearance. And that's exactly what has happened to both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano. Mr. Warnick says, this is tantamount to removing someone from that job and any other job that requires that level of clearance. It is not a common occurrence. So if my Liberal colleagues want to remember the words of the Prime Minister in 2015 about doing government different, about sunny ways, that Canadians can expect the most open, transparent, and accountable government this country has ever seen, They will vote in favor of this motion, as will I. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brock. Bonjour, Madame Sinclair Desgagnés. Vous avez la parole maintenant.
Good afternoon, Chair. Hello, all colleagues, and have a great year to everyone I haven't seen yet. First of all, I'll try to be as quick as possible here. Many of us were taken out of our various very important meetings in order to come to this meeting. I'd like to remind all my colleagues of one thing.
Last 10 minutes, folks.
Protecting whistleblowers is something that the Bloc Québécois cares a lot about. It's my colleague for Mirabel who has now put forward a private member's bill on protecting whistleblowers. That said, I'd like to get back to Mr. Genuis's motion. If there are documents, evidence, information that show that there were reprehensible behavior from the government side, I would ask these governments to be sent to the OAG. I would like to thank Mr. Hayes for being here today. However, he needs all the documents in hand to be able to write the report. Then, or to help with the report rather, then we need to continue with our study of ArriveCan. The current motion being discussed is premature.
How is it premature?
I think that we need the expert opinion of the AG and then hear what she has to say and then continue with our work. We will be there to continue this work. I will be there in order to move this file forward in order to protect whistleblowers. However, at this stage, with the documents we have, with the information we have, and especially at 2 weeks' notice before the OAG's report on this very issue, I really think that this whole thing is premature. That is to report anything to the House at this stage. Let us work hard, diligently, and together. I would invite my colleagues to do so. This is an important committee. We will hold the government accountable for its actions. If there was anything reprehensible that happened, we will highlight it, and we will potentially be able to bring it to the House. This motion could be debated once more if necessary, but at this stage, I do believe it is premature.
I don't think you even understand what the motion is, Sinclair, because the motion is essentially to highlight that there is a serious issue with potential reprisals for people who come forward from the public service and testify at committee, and that they need to be protected. That's what the motion is essentially talking about. You're talking about a report to be brought to the House. Do you even understand what you're voting for? Or are the translators doing a bad job translating into French? I don't think it's the second one. Like, we will find out what's going on. How are you going to find that out if the people don't come forward because they don't feel safe, you knob? Like, God, she's been hanging around Gord Johns too much.
Therefore, I would ask my colleagues to call a vote. And I think that out of respect for Mr. Hayes, we should be voting on Mr. Genuis's motion and then proceed. If someone after that has questions for Mr. Hayes, they can ask them. So let's be reasonable here and do the right thing and do this. Thank you, Ms. Sinclair Desgagnés.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I didn't expect this to take the time that it has, and there's been a lot of time spent by people talking about things that aren't actually the motion, people talking about other ideas for protecting whistleblowers, and I think there's a time and place for that discussion. We're dealing with a specific instance here of two senior public servants who came before our committee, gave very frank testimony, and almost immediately after that, they faced severe professional consequences. I think this is a relatively clear and certainly a pressing matter. So at this point, I'd like to seek the agreement of the committee to proceed to a vote on this.
Well, I still have Mr. Johns and Ms. Khalid on the speaking list. I suspect they both wish to speak. Yes.
Well, just put the question to the committee. Is there agreement to proceed to a vote, or?
See, yeah,
Unless
I'm seeing no. So,
from where are you saying no?
well, I hear no, Mr. Genuis.
Point of order, I'm saying yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, let's proceed to the vote, please.
Well,
Great.
all right.
So it appears there's unanimous consent.
Would members like to vote?
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll call on Mr. Genuis's motion, which I will just read while you're preparing to take.
They're talking about this.
Vote.
Robert McFellin with a $10 super
The
chat.
committee
hanging
report
with
to the
Fox and
House
Cyphers,
its
hanging
grave
with Patriots,
concern
friends,
about
great work,
apparent
awakening
reprisals
Canada. Thank
against
you so much.
Thank you
witnesses
very much.
following their testimony on the ArriveCan app. Over to you, Madam Clerk.
Shall the motion of Mr. Genuis carry?
Yes.
Ms. Bradford?
No.
Do you want to record the vote?
Yes, we want to record a vote.
Yeah, of course they want to record.
We want to record a vote.
Mr. Chen?
No.
Ms. Khalid?
No.
Ms. Shanahan?
No.
Ms. Yip?
No.
Mr. McCauley?
No.
Yes.
Mr.
The
Genuis?
Liberals knew.
Yes.
They know what's going to happen before it
Mr.
even
Brock?
happens.
Yes.
Madame Sinclair de Gagny?
No.
This is all prep work for what they're
Mr.
about
Johns?
to do.
No.
Not in this committee. But
Again.
Well, and Barnaby, your girl voted
You only get one
against.
vote,
yeah, your girlfriend here voted against the motion, Barnaby. So
and it is defeated.
what's up?
Turning right back now to the witness. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Hayes. Ms. Khalid, the floor is yours for any questioning you have of Mr. Hayes.
Just say that the.
Thank you, Chair. I will take this time to agree with the block, Ms. Natalie Saint-Gagné, in that this is a very premature meeting, as I have said time and again. At this time, I don't think that Mr. Hayes is in a position to answer any of the questions. As the report hasn't been tabled, will not be tabled until February 12th. I look forward to to us continuing this study as we have agreed to in our committee. It is obviously very important to all members, and I think that if we can get the timing of it right, it would be very beneficial
She's
for
about to
us,
adjourn the meeting too,
to
Barnaby. You're
have,
not doing well.
The OAG here before us to answer whatever questions we may have, the committee, all members of this committee may have to ask. So with that, Chair, I will move to adjourn this meeting.
Very good. Dilatory motion. I will ask the clerk for a recorded vote on that, please.
Shall the motion to adjourn debate carry? Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Sorry, not debate, sorry, the meeting. Sorry. Ms. Bradford?
Yes.
Mr. Chen? Yes. Ms. Khalid?
Yes.
Ms. Shanahan?
So is it going to
Ms. Yip?
No.
Yes.
Mr. McCauley?
No.
Mr. Genuis?
No.
Mr. Brock?
No. Conservatives believe in accountability.
Thank you. I agree. I agree.
It's not allowed
Madame
to say that.
Sinclair de Gagny?
But he did.
Oui.
It's on the record.
Mr. Johns?
Yes, and be glad.
And same to you, Mr. Johns. This meeting is adjourned.
Did you hear that, Shane?
Wow.
Wow. Well, I'm glad Williamson threw it
You know,
back.
I
at him.
hope Canadians see that. We need to clip that into a short, that they're voting to adjourn the meeting, and he says, yes, and I'll be glad.
Yep.
That's what Canadians need to see, especially if you're in his constituency. That is shameful.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Okay, you might be thinking that's the end, right? That is not the end. This is what happened right after. Before we get to that, LC with a $2 super chat. Brock has just let loose. So happy.
He sure did.
Hi, everyone. MP Garnet Jennis here. We are at the Public Accounts Committee. I'm here with the prosecutor, Larry Brock, here. And we are here at the Public Accounts Committee. And important update for you. The government, working with their coalition partners, the NDP, just adjourned in the middle of the meeting. We had a representative of the Auditor General's office coming here to testify about the important work the Auditor General is doing investigating the ArriveCan scandal. Liberals, New Democrats did not want to hear that testimony, so the NDP Liberal Corrupt Coalition adjourned the meeting in the middle after we had barely had a chance to get any questions answered. We also tried to move a motion expressing our concern about the intimidation and reprisals against witnesses who have spoken out against what happened in ArriveCan, and the NDP Liberal Coalition defeated that motion. So
the Conservatives knew, they probably had an inkling that the NDP and the Liberals would shut down the testimony for this, and they definitely knew that their motion was going to be defeated. So they set a trap. They set a voting trap. And that trap was to get them to expectantly get out of that meeting and expectantly vote down that motion. And that trap was so that they could then record another one of these videos, because these are the videos that have been going viral, and they know that. So this allowed them to set up yet another one of these videos literally days before the return to Parliament, right before the news cycle. And it's just one more piece of ammunition that they're loading into the chamber for next week. Right? So they knew exactly how this would go. And this was the whole strategy for this meeting. You're seeing it play out. This is the payoff that the Conservatives were expecting. And they are using the Liberals' corruption against them. Because they absolutely know that they're so corrupt that they are going to get out of these meetings. Well, if they already know what they're going to do, they may as well be ready for it and turn it to their advantage. So let's just finish off this video that they have. But actually, right before that, there was a couple of member comments. Jason Abbey, haven't seen you forever. Welcome back, or maybe you've been lurking. Next election cycle, we should clip them saying honest and transparent, then post all the clips of them adjourning meetings, hiding evidence, and so on. That's a great idea.
You know
Jason.
who's really good at that sort of thing is our friend Vesper. I'm going to put his link. I'm going to pin it at the top of the chat, and you guys can check out his Twitter. It's amazing. He supercuts everything. It's awesome. Just check it out.
Troy Bojarski, I think that's how you say your name. Good Polish lad there. Nice. Wow, time's fun when you're having flies. Glad you folks are there with the swatter. You're very welcome. And Will Kowalchuk with a $5 super chat. I feel this is an eye-awakening moment in history, and we all need to keep up with this. Thank you, Cypher and Fox, for the good work. You are so welcome. So let's just finish this up.
They defeated our motion to try to protect whistleblowers in government, and they voted to shut down the meeting early before we had barely even been able to get into questions to the Auditor General's office. The good news is the Auditor General is going to be producing a report on February the 12th. So stay tuned for that report from the Auditor General on February 12th. It's been a pleasure working with Larry. Larry, what did you see today?
Absolutely shameful. This is exactly what we expect from this corrupt Liberal NDP coalition. They did the same thing when the actual Auditor General appeared at this committee on October the 12th. One round of questioning brought from myself as a Conservative, brought to the attention of everyone involved that the Auditor General only found out that the RCMP were investigating the shenanigans involving this ArriveCan scam after reading it in the newspaper, not hearing from the government, not the Prime Minister, not the government officials, only from reading it in the paper. They shut down the debate at that point, just like they did today. This is shameful. We'll continue to pursue the truth.
All right, and a fun anecdote for you before we wrapped up. Larry and I just discovered something else we have in common. We love holding corrupt Liberals to account, but we also discovered that both of us have the same national origin. We're both from a little island in the Mediterranean Sea called Malta. Our ancestors came from there. So Larry,
Maltese brothers from a different mother.
Maltese Dream Team, holding the Liberals to account. We have a long history of
pretty sure
defending our
you're
island.
more a nephew of Larry
defend
Brock.
the freedoms of Canadians, and we will continue to fight together to get to the bottom of this scandal, along with other great members of this team, Stephanie Kuzy, Kelly Block, and Michael Barrett over at OGO, John Williamson and Kelly McCauley here in Public Accounts Committee. Conservatives are going to continue to fight to get to the bottom of the ArriveCan scandal. $54 million were spent on this glitchy app that didn't work properly. The contract was given to a two-person company that does no IT work and subcontracted all the actual work. And we continue to see efforts by the government, including today, intimidation of witnesses, preventing testimony from happening, trying to bury the facts. But we're going to keep fighting to get to the bottom of it.
Hear, hear.
All right. So a interesting, if not educational evening. And, we didn't learn a lot from the Governor General's deputy, but we did learn a couple things. A, the report is coming out on the 12th, which is 1 week after the public hearings end. So the public hearings for the Chinese foreign interference public inquiry, those will end as of the 2nd, and that means that the Monday the 12th is when that report is going to come out. So it makes you wonder what's going to happen on the week of the 5th. That's what's curious.
Yeah, I can't wait.
So there it is, everybody, for what was supposed to be a quiet January. Things are heating up. Holy moly. And it looks like the Conservatives, this was just one more thing that they wanted to grab in terms of their firepower to unload on the Liberals starting next week. And, if I were Trudeau, I'd be staying as far away from question period as I could, because he is going to get absolutely blasted. And it feels like this is building to a critical mass. Who knows? Who knows what could happen? But we're still wondering if there's going to be a spring election. We'll be right until we're wrong. Anyhow, thank you everybody for joining us. It's actually good that we are ending it earlier than usual on a weeknight.
Yeah, you and I can get some sleep.
Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody. The chat has been amazing. The donations have been amazing. And the conversation has been amazing. And hopefully everybody learned something. Tomorrow, there's so much. We don't even know what we're doing yet. But we may talk about Lametti. He's been talking about his resignation and a whole bunch of other things. Trudeau gave a speech at his caucus. Who knows? But we'll figure it out for tomorrow night, and then we'll release that, and you get to see our next video on Northern Perspective. So until then, we'll see you in the comments.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a good night.